Morning to all of you. This is Raju sir briefing you about the intercostal spaces. The objectives of today's lecture are introduction, etymology, surface marking, the structure of intercostal space, which is filled with the muscles, neurovascular bundle, the typical spinal nerve, the thoracic spinal nerve, the joints, and the applied anatomy. I repeat, the objectives of today's lecture are introduction, etymology, surface marking, structure, the space which is filled with the muscles, neurovascular bundle, typical thoracic spinal nerve, the joints, and the applied anatomy. The introduction, the definition if we see, the interval between the two adjacent ribs is called as an intercostal space. The interval between the two adjacent ribs is called as intercostal space. The space between the adjacent ribs and costal cartilages is occupied by intercostal muscles, which are active during respiratory movements of the thoracic wall. The space between the adjacent ribs and costal cartilages is occupied by intercostal muscles, which are active during the respiratory movements of the thoracic wall. Intercostal vessels and nerves run between these muscles in each space and give branches to adjacent tissues and the overlying skin. The intercostal vessels and nerves, that's the neurovascular bundle, runs between these muscles, which are those muscles which we are going to learn in detail in each space and give branches to adjacent tissues and the overlying skin also. Here we can see the illustration of the thoracic cage, which includes the ribs and cartilages, the sternum with its parts and posteriorly located vertebrae, and in between the ribs, the interval or the gap, the space between the ribs is called as intercostal space. The etymology, as we know, the space, there is no particular Latin terminology or not, except the word costa. The space means a continuous area. Here, it is not just a space which is filled with the muscles and the neurovascular bundle. The intercostal means between the ribs. The surface marking, usually the clinically important surface marking is described here. Wherever the role of intercostal spaces is studied, is mentioned here. The pericardium is exposed behind the medial ends of the fourth and fifth intercostal spaces. Pericardium is exposed behind the medial ends of the fourth and fifth intercostal spaces. This is what the importance of the intercostal spaces. And according to that, we are locating the surface marking. Here, the use of fourth and fifth intercostal spaces will come to know. Sounds generated by pulmonary valve are loudest over the anterior end of the second left intercostal space. Second left intercostal space again. First point about the fourth and fifth intercostal spaces. The second point is about the second left intercostal space. The aortic valve lies behind the sternum to the left of the midline at the level of the anterior end of the third left intercostal space. Again, the aortic valve is located in the sternum on the left side, third intercostal space. Then the fourth, the nipple is located in the fourth intercostal space. The very important and the cardinal feature of this slide is that apex beat can be felt in the left fifth intercostal space, 9 centimeters from the mid-sternal line. So the left fifth intercostal space. So on order, second, third, fourth, and fifth intercostal spaces are to be marked on the surface of the body, which are having the clinical significance. So this is a surface marking. We locate the intercostal spaces based on these landmarks. Here we can see the sternum this index finger is showing the Lewis angle, sternal angle, the junction between the manubrium and the body, which we are locating here. Then the second one, this diagram is explaining about these three fingers are showing three intercostal spaces. Based on this sternal angle at the angle of the Lewis, this finger indicating the second intercostal space, this finger indicating the third, this finger is indicating the fourth intercostal space as well. Next, we move to the another objective, that's the structure. The intercostal spaces can be seen here. We can count even 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Total 11 intercostal spaces can be located. Even from the posterior side also, you can locate. Now, the typical and atypical meanings we'll come to know. As per the typical and atypical words meaning, which are not same, which are not following the normal formula, can be called as atypical. Here, the atypical intercostal spaces, we discuss about it. The number given to each intercostal space and its neurovascular structures corresponds to that of the rib, which limits the space superiorly. Based on that, the number is given. The typical space with its typical nerve and the typical rib and the typical vertebra, and the nerves including T3 to T6, and the ribs including 3 to 9, and the vertebrae includes 2 to 8. I repeat, the nerves includes T3 to T6, ribs includes the third rib to ninth rib, and the vertebrae includes 2 to 8. Thoracic number 2 to thoracic vertebra number 8. What about the typical intercostal spaces? From 3 to 6 spaces are considered as the typical intercostal spaces, in which the typical intercostal nerves are also located. Based on this, we are going to study in detail about the typical intercostal nerve also. Here, the sagittal section through which the right breast you can see, behind which you have to locate these cartilages, and in between them or in between these ribs you can find the intercostal spaces. This is the sagittal sections of left side, right side breast, in which you can see clearly the intercostal spaces. The space between these two bones or ribs is called as intercostal space. Pectoralis major, you can see from this diagram, as we have dissected the upper limb. We could recall the pectoralis major, which is taking origin from the clavicle and the ribs and is going to insert on the bicipital groove laterally. Then here you can locate the pectoralis minor. After reflecting these two muscles, pectoralis major as well as pectoralis minor, we can see the cage, rib cage. Here we can find the rib cage. One by one, we can see the clavicle, the ribs. In between, you can see the muscle fibers which are directed medially from below upwards. We can calculate or we count them. Then the serratus anterior. Here you can see the serratus anterior muscle with its 8 digitations. After removal of that, we can see the remaining part of the intercostal spaces. Then here we can see in this diagram or in this illustration, you can see the direction of the fibers. It's the external intercostal muscle. The outermost one is called as external intercostal muscle. What we have to appreciate in this diagram is that here there is a membrane. Even the anterior aspect also there is a membrane. In between them there are the muscle fibers. Now we'll see in detail. This is a very classical diagram from which we can understand the concept of intercostal spaces clearly. Here outermost skin, then the fascia, then the muscles you can see in which the serratus anterior muscle is located here. Then the external intercostal muscle, the direction of muscle fibers you can see, the external intercostal muscle. Then the internal intercostal muscle, the direction of internal intercostal muscle and the external intercostal muscles fibers are opposite to each other. This is what we have to observe. they're opposite to each other. Then here you can see the innermost intercostal muscle. These are the two ribs. Any two ribs we can count them. Consider this as the second rib and the third rib. Here you can see the costal groove. This is what the costal groove. Then in the costal groove, you can see the location of the vein, artery, and nerve. And here is the innermost intercostal muscle. What we have to appreciate here is that here is in between internal intercostal and the innermost intercostal. In between them, we are able to find out the neurovascular bundle. I repeat once again the same diagram. As you go deeper, there are the relations, the parietal pleura, the pleural cavity, and the visceral pleura and the lungs are located. The schematic diagram in which we can understand in detail. So here you can see the skin, superficial fascia, the muscles like the serratus anterior, then the ribs, in ribs lower border, the upper border of the below rib, the external intercostal muscle, the direction of muscle fibers, then the internal intercostal muscle, the direction of muscle fibers, then innermost intercostal muscle. Here the costal groove consists of the neurovascular bundle. The neurovascular bundle consisting in an order, they are vein, artery, and nerve. VAN. We remember it as a van. Then the innermost intercostal muscle. What we have to appreciate, I repeat, internal intercostal muscle and innermost intercostal muscle. In between them, there is the neurovascular bundle. Then you can see the pleura and the lungs as well. Then we would like to continue with the description in detail, the structural description. The muscles which cover the spaces in between the adjacent ribs known as intercostal muscle. The other muscle. Intercostal space consists of intercostal muscles. Intercostal space consists of intercostal nerves, intercostal veins, intercostal arteries as well. In this manner, the intercostal muscle will see. Later on, we'll see the veins, arteries, and nerves in detail. Now we have to study in detail about the thoracic spinal nerve. There are three types of intercostal muscles, namely the external, internal, and innermost, as we have seen in the diagram already. Here, there is a description about each and every muscle, which are helping for the respiration totally. Along with this external intercostal, internal intercostal, innermost intercostal, there is a diaphragm, levator costarum, serratus posterior, and serratus posterior superior and inferior as well. Here you can see the external intercostal. Here, we would like to continue with the previous slide. And the external intercostal muscle, which is taking origin from the inferior border of the rib, and the insertion will be over the superior border of the rib below. So the origin is taking from the rib below, and the insertion is going the one which is above. So intercostal nerves, usually they are getting nerve supply from, and with first rib fixed, they rise the ribs during the inspiration and thus increase the anteroposterior and transverse diameters of the thorax. So this is about the external intercostal muscle. There are 11 in number. Then internal intercostal muscles, fibers pass downward and backwards. These fibers, external intercostal fibers, are passing downward and forward. They're same like the external intercostal muscle, taking origin from inferior border and inserting on the superior border. The nerve supply is of intercostal nerves, and with the last rib fixed by the abdominal muscles, they lower the ribs during expiration. So internal intercostal muscles are helpful in expiration, and whereas the external intercostal muscles are helpful in inspiration, during inspiration. Then the innermost intercostal muscles, adjacent ribs, from the adjacent ribs they are taking origin, and it is an incomplete layer we can call. then going to insert over the adjacent ribs, and the intercostal nerves are supplying, assist the external and internal intercostal muscles. So these are meant for assisting the external and internal intercostal muscles. In the diaphragm, Jeffoid process, the lower 6 costal cartilages, first 3 lumbar vertebrae, central tendon going to insert on the central tendon, and the phrenic nerve is the nerve supply to the diaphragm. Then very important muscle of inspiration, we call this. Then the levator posterum, the tip of transverse process of C7 and T11 and T12. T11 to T12 to T11, and the rib below, which is going to insert, they are directed downwards, and posterior rami of the thoracic spinal nerves and nerve supply, and the action is on the raises the ribs and therefore inspiratory muscles. There are the inspiratory muscles like the external intercostal muscles. The serratus posterior superior, lower cervical and upper thoracic nerves spines are giving the origin and insertion over the upper ribs. The nerve supply is over the intercostal, nerve supply is from the intercostal nerves, and the action is raising the ribs and therefore inspiratory muscles. So inspiratory muscles are the external intercostal muscles, the levator posterum, and the serratus posterior superior. What about the serratus posterior inferior? This taking origin from the upper lumbar and the lower thoracic spines, and going to insert on the lower ribs. Intercostal nerves are the nerves which are giving nerve supply. Then the depresses the ribs and therefore expiratory muscles. So here we'll come to know that external intercostal muscle and the levator posterum, serratus posterior superior are, and including the diaphragm, are the inspiratory muscles, and the internal intercostal muscle and the serratus posterior inferior are the expiratory muscles. Then the external intercostal muscle in detail. External intercostal muscles, these are the outermost muscles pass from the lower border of the upper rib to the upper border of the lower rib, downward and forward. They extend anteriorly. The direction is from medial side. What we define is here clearly, they are extended anteriorly towards the costochondral junction. That means from lower to upper side, directed towards the medial side, becoming gradually more fibrous and merge into the external or anterior intercostal membrane. So here, where the membrane is located, it's very important to understand. The membrane is located on the anterior side. Answer is anterior side. For in case of external intercostal muscles, here you can see the external intercostal muscles. The anteriorly is directed towards the sternum or costochondral junction, and these are considered as the there is a membrane, external intercostal muscles. Then during inspiration, these muscles contract and pull up the ribs to increase the surface area for lungs to inspire. The action is during inspiration, these muscles contract and pull up the ribs to increase the surface area for lungs to inspire. The external intercostal muscle, you can observe the arrow mark, red arrow mark. They are directed medially. They are directed medially from lower rib to upper lip, and the direction towards the medial side. The schematic view, inspiration and expiration. You can see the forced inspiration and forced expiration. The schematic view to understand the inspiration and expiration. Then the internal intercostal muscles, they are running intermediately and with the fibers directed downwards and backwards, running at right angles to the external intercostals. They are running right angle opposite to each other, external and internal intercostal muscles. They extend from the sternum laterally around to the angle of the rib, where they become fibrous and merge to form the internal or posterior intercostal membrane. So where the membrane is located here, posteriorly it is located. So now it is clear. Internal intercostal muscle consists of a membrane on the posterior side. Then you can see it's a posteriorly, you can find the gap that indicates that there is an internal intercostal membrane is located on the posterior side, whereas in case of external intercostal muscles, membrane is located on the anterior side. The direction of the muscle fibers is right angles to the external, means the muscle fibers of external intercostal muscle are directed medially, whereas the internal intercostal muscle are directed towards the lateral side, the posterior side. Then action during expiration, these muscles contract to pull down the ribs to decrease surface area for lungs to expire. expiratory muscles. Then the schematic view, again, expiration, how the expiration occurs, we'll see. Then innermost intercostal muscles. Innermost intercostal muscles largely incomplete and consist of numerous slips of muscle tissue. They are individually named as the transversus thoracis anteriorly, intracostal or laterally, and subcostalis posteriorly. These are bound together by a continuous sheet of fascia. The innermost muscles are also separated from the parietal flora by a further layer of fascia called as endothoracic fascia. So this is not a single muscle, this is a group of muscles and the slips of muscle tissue. And transversus thoracis anteriorly, intracostal laterally, and subcostalis posteriorly. We'll observe the same in the diagram. External intercostal muscle, internal intercostal muscle, and this is a transverse group. In between them, we can find the vein, artery, and nerve appearance. Here also, we can locate the lateral view, the external intercostal muscle, internal intercostal muscle, innermost intercostal muscle, intercostal vein, artery, and nerve. They're arranged in an order: vein, artery, nerve. The innermost intercostal muscle can be seen in this diagram. It's illustrated clearly. The innermost intercostal muscle. Directly, you can see the parietal flora. This is the slips of innermost intercostal muscles. Here also, we can observe the innermost intercostal muscle. Here, we can locate it as the subcostal muscle. Again, along with this neurovascular bundle. This is the internal view from inside, we can see. Then the schematic diagram to show the subcostal muscle. Then the transversus thoracis muscle. Then the neurovascular supply. The neurovascular bundles each consist of, from above downwards, a vein, artery, and a nerve in the form of VAN, mnemonic as VAN. They lie between the innermost and the internal intercostal muscles layers for almost their entire course. In the first diagram itself, we had discussed. Again, we can see in the diagram. Here's the diagram which shows us the costal groove in which we can see the vein, artery, and nerve in an order: intercostal vein and artery and nerve. Then the neurovascular supply. Again, we can see the diagram between the external, internal, and innermost. So here we can find the internal intercostal muscle and the innermost intercostal muscle. In between them, we can find the neurovascular bundle, vein, artery, and nerve. The internal thoracic vessels in this diagram we can find is the internal thoracic artery and the vein demonstrated here. The illustration is clear. Then the venous drainage. Veins have complex terminations and consist of the posterior and anterior intercostal veins. The posterior veins eventually drain into the superior vena cava via the azygous and hemiazygous system of veins, and the anterior veins drain into the musculophrenic vein, the lower spaces, or the internal thoracic vein in the upper spaces. Here in the diagram, it is shown the internal thoracic vein, whereas the left superior intercostal vein drains the second and the third spaces and crosses the left side of the arch of the aorta to terminate in the left brachiocephalic vein. What about the right side? The right side, the first posterior intercostal vein or the supreme intercostal vein leaves the thorax to terminate usually in the vertebral, but occasionally in the brachiocephalic vein. Here you can see the thoracic vein and totally the venous drainage. Here you can find the hemiazygous vein, and this is the left superior intercostal vein. The right brachiocephalic vein is the left brachiocephalic vein. It's the azygous system of veins. Then arterial supply. Arteries are derived from the aorta, superior intercostal artery, and internal thoracic arteries. Here you can see the description in detail. The posterior and anterior intercostal arteries. The posterior intercostal arteries arise directly from the thoracic aorta from T3 to T11, and from the superior intercostal artery from T1 and T2. The anterior intercostal arteries are derived from the two internal thoracic arteries, which themselves are branches from the subclavian artery and run behind and just lateral to the sternal edge. The last two intercostal spaces are supplied by the posterior intercostal arteries only. The anterior intercostals eventually anastomose with the posterior intercostal arteries. There are the anastomoses. Here you can find the arteries, internal thoracic artery, and the intercostal arteries, which intercostal space getting the arteries, intercostal arteries, and they are anastomosed with each other. Here you can find the musculophrenic artery also. This is the internal thoracic artery. In the nerve supply, important to notice, the ventral rami of the thoracic nerves from T1 to T11, the lower 5 nerves from T7 to 11 continue to supply the abdominal wall and maintain their position between the innermost and the internal muscle layers, the internal oblique and the transverse abdominis respectively. The typical intercostal nerves, so they will be T3 to T6 are considered as a typical one. What about the atypical ones? T1 and T2 give a branch to the brachial plexus. T1 has no lateral or anterior cutaneous branch. T2 has a lateral cutaneous nerve but no branches, so considered as atypical one. T7 to T11 cross their corresponding spaces to supply the anterior abdominal wall. So these are also considered as atypical ones. So typical ones are only T3 to T6. Here we can see the first intercostal nerve. Its main part ascends in front of the neck of the first rib to join lower trunk of the brachial plexus. So it is a typical one. The second intercostal nerve, its course and branches are similar to the typical intercostal nerves, but it differs in that its lateral cutaneous branch does not divide into anterior and posterior branches, but directed posteriorly and crosses the axilla to supply the skin of the upper part of the medial side of the arm, so called as the intercostobrachial nerve. We'll find it in the diagram. Then the lower 5 intercostal nerves, 7 to 11, they supply the anterior abdominal wall. The 10th nerve supplies the skin at the level of the umbilicus. The subcostal nerve, the 12th one, runs below the 12th rib and ends above the symphysis pubis. Considered as these are all considered as atypical intercostal nerves. Here you can see the intercostal brachial nerve, second one branch. Then the lower 5, you can find they are supplying the anterior abdominal wall. So they are not considered as the typical ones. The typical thoracic spinal nerve, the lateral cutaneous nerve with its anterior and posterior branches, then only we can consider it as a typical one, along with the anterior cutaneous nerve with medial and lateral cutaneous branch, lie within the intercostal space and supply the structure within its space. Then only we consider them as typical intercostal nerve. Then intercostal nerve, typically whatever the remaining we came to know, only 3 to 6 are considered as the typical intercostal nerves. The remaining all are not considered as the typical, so that they are atypical ones. Intercostal nerve gives usually the muscular branches, intercostal muscles which supplies. Then the collateral branch runs inferior to the main branch. Anterior cutaneous branch supplies to the skin near the midline and divides into medial and lateral branches. Lateral cutaneous branch supplies to skin on lateral side of the chest and divides into anterior and posterior branches. Pleural sensory branches, parietal pleura. Peritoneal sensory branches supplies parietal peritoneum, 7 to 11 spaces, and there are communicants which connects the intercostal nerve to the sympathetic ganglia. So that's how they are called as rami communicants. In intercostal nerve, we can observe that it's coming out of the spinal cord, joined together, again dividing into, these are the roots, ventral root and dorsal root, and joined together, and the ventral rami and the dorsal rami. Here you can see the ganglion, sympathetic ganglion. Here the gray rami communicants and the white rami communicants. Here you can trace the in the neurovascular bundle. Now it is entering into the space. The nerve, we call it as intercostal nerve now, and dividing, giving a branch called as the lateral cutaneous nerve, which is dividing into anterior and posterior ones. Here again, the anterior branch, which is dividing into medial and lateral branches. The rami communicants to form the sympathetic trunk, collateral to the intercostal muscles and pleura, lateral cutaneous nerves to the lateral wall skin and muscles, and anterior cutaneous nerve to the anterior wall of the skin and muscles. The schematic view, again you can see here the nerves coming out of the spinal cord, roots, then the branches, the lateral and the anterior one again medial, lateral one again the posterior and anterior. This is the nerve which we can locate, which is communicating with the sympathetic trunk. Again, here is again one more view, clear view, the schematic diagram to understand these spinal nerve. The roots, dorsal root consists of a ganglion, pseudoganglion, ventral root, and joined together. Trunk they are forming. Then the ventral ramus and the dorsal ramus. Again, ventral ramus dividing into, giving a branch lateral cutaneous and the anterior medial anterior cutaneous. Then medial and lateral branches of anterior one. Then the lateral one again giving branch posterior and anterior one. So this is what the intercostal nerve and its branches. Then the joints. Here you can see the sternum is articulating with the body. Mandibulosternal junction, secondary cartilaginous joint. Then the costochondral junctions are the primary cartilaginous type. Then sternoclavicular joint, you can see. Along with that, the first rib also going to articulate with the first costochondral, primary cartilaginous type of joints. Then the sternochondral, 3 to 7 sternochondral joints. Then xiphisternal, secondary cartilaginous joint. Here you can locate these joints. And applied anatomy, finally, the last objective that we are, the sternum used for narrow bone marrow biopsy may be split to make surgical access to the heart, great vessels, and thymus. And the sternal angle is an important landmark for counting the ribs and the costal cartilages and intercostal spaces. Here the role of intercostal spaces. Thoracic outlet syndrome, compression of nerves and vessels at the superior aperture of the thorax. And the cervical rib. Sometimes, usually we find the thoracic ribs only, then there can be possibility of cervical rib. The referred pain, disease in the thorax may reveal the pain in anterior abdominal wall due to the dermatomes and all. Then the traumatic injuries to the thorax, fracture of the rib can occur, and there can be involvement of the multiple ribs in the fractures. Then the intercostal spaces are important for the surgical procedures, various surgical procedures, and percussion, and the sample, to get the sample called as paracentesis, aspiration of the pleural fluid. Then the cervical rib syndrome, automatically when there is a cervical rib, it leads to complications called as group of signs and symptoms considered as a cervical rib syndrome. The shape of the chest will be changing. Barrel chest, we call it as rib cage. It's like a round torso. In this diagram you can see it's illustrated clearly. Barrel chest. Pectus excavatum, anterior chest wall. Then what happens? The caved in, the sunken appearance of the chest will be seen. You can see pectus excavatum, we call it as. Then rachitic rosary, and the ribs will be prominently visible. Beading appearance we can see. Here you can see a small child suffering from rickets, in which you can see the rachitic rosary appearance. Then pectus carinatum, pigeon chest. Pigeon chest can be seen. Here you can see in the diagram, pigeon chest, which is expanded anteriorly. And the thoracotomy incisions can be anterolateral and posterolateral anterior. Notching of ribs leads to the obstruction of aorta. Here we can see the paracentesis or the pleural tap, and the aspiration of the fluid can be through the intercostal spaces after piercing the external innermost intercostal muscles. Pleural cavity, the needle has reached, then fluid aspiration can be done. Then this the intercostal muscles will help in breathing, and ECG placement, leads for the ECG, placement for the ECG, and important role in auscultation, and pericardial and pleural cavity approach, and prevent the internal tissue damage or the bulging, and medium for the internal organ thoracic cavity during surgery, prevent blowing out of air, maintaining the intrathoracic pressure. And finally, the intercostal nerve block. The intercostal nerve block is indicated for repair of lacerations of the thoracic and abdominal walls, for relief of pain in rib fractures, and to allow pain-free respiratory movements. So this is about the today's lecture on the intercostal spaces, in which we came to know the introduction, and the remaining, the space is filled with the intercostal muscles, the neurovascular bundle mainly. Mainly we focused on the internal, external, and innermost intercostal muscles, which are the expiratory muscles and inspiratory muscles. They are really useful in the respiration. And the in detail study of the thoracic spinal nerve
and the applied anatomy also we studied in detail. Thank you very much.